Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Blind Man Plays. This is Jared Walters, and how are you all doing today? I hope you are doing very well. So today we are going to be looking at the Perils of Dos Emulation. Now, DOS emulation is a little bit higgledy-piggledy. It's a bit like Amiga emulation, but I'm hoping this video will cover quite a few things. Now, DOS basically was one of the most successful operating systems in basically the history of computing, and is the foundation of obviously modern computing today. So we're going to be looking into doing several things with DOS emulation. We're going to look into some games. We're going to look into different ways that you can emulate DOS and DOS games, and revitalise those old memories, because DOS has a really wide variety of games spanning from the 1980s to like the late 1990s. So you've got things like NES ports all the way up to Quake, and the early sort of FPS genre. So this is Blind Man Plays, and this is the Perils of DOS Emulation. Right, so basically there's a couple of things that we're going to talk about here. With Launchbox, it's very easy to emulate DOS games, or at least get your DOS games up and running, right? What I would suggest is, again, putting all your DOS games in one folder and putting them in the Launchbox folder under Games. And I have a folder called MS-DOS. Now, before we do that though, we're going to have a look at emulating DOS online, because there are a few sites online that actually allow you to play DOS games through a browser. Archive.org is one of them, and basically I'll put the link in the description below. And as you can see here, this is archive.org, and it's basically got an online DOS box here that you can actually play. And a lot of these games now are like abandonware or shareware versions of the original games. I don't know if it's like the full version. This is Doom being played on archive.org. I don't actually know how legal this is, but I think it's because most of these games are now abandonware, and obviously the platform is not supported. Then it is actually legal for them to put them on the actual site. But basically this is Doom. As you can see, I'm basically playing Doom as you would on MS-DOS, and this works perfectly well. There's quite a big archive of games that stretch the length of DOS. Just going to show you another one loading up, but I'm not going to actually go into the game because it's quite a in-depth game. It's an old favourite of mine and an old friend of mine that we used to play back in the day. This is a game called Ascendancy, and I'm just going to show you the opening title for it, and it's just working on the online sort of platform. Ascendancy is basically it's like Civilization in space. So you think of it, you have rather than sort of civilizations, you have galactic races, and you have to manage resources, and the idea is that you either sort of unite everyone or dominate the map through conquest. So very similar sort of game to Civilization in principle, but based out in outer space in a fictional universe. So yeah, basically this site, I'll put this site in the description below. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to add your ROMs into Launchbox so you can play them natively on your computer. And let's go back to what I was saying earlier about putting your games into a directory, into Launchbox, your Launchbox directory, so everything's in the same place. And the good thing about that is, like me, you can use an external drive, so you can actually take your emulation setup with you wherever you go and use it on whatever PC that you connected to different PCs if you want to. So, okay, there's a couple of ways to do this, and I'm going to talk about the traditional way of doing it first. This is not the way I really recommend, but everyone is different, so this doesn't necessarily work for me, but it may actually work better for you. So, right, basically, if you are using the native launch Dosbox that's in RetroArch, it is better that your files are unzipped. If you are going to be using Dosbox pure through RetroArch, it's better that the files are zipped. So this is a little complicated, it's a little higgledy-piggledy, and it all depends what games you're adding, okay? Because not all games have different configs, different setups. Some games need to be installed, some games can be played off the bat. You know, it's literally a case-by-case basis, and sometimes it can be a pain getting these ROMs to actually work. But I'm going to show you one that's working. So I'm going to go into my Dosbox folder here. WWF in your house. So let's go to Launchbox, and basically just drag it in. And if you're going to use Dosbox, then you got the three options here. You click MS-DOS game, keep it in this location, search for metadata, make sure you keep all these ticked what you want, if you want the big boxes, the screenshots, etc, etc. Click next. And if you want the Emu movies data as well, and click next. And have a look which ones of these apply to you. Tick the boxes, click next. Check the details are right here. Click finish. And that will add the game into Launchbox for you. So once that is done, Launchbox will update, and you will see that here. Click the game, click play, and as you see, the game will load. Now if the game needs installing, you'll get a prompt to install the game into Dosbox, and as you can see, I'm not getting any sound here, so it's like you might have to configure the sound. I'm not entirely sure how to do this in Dosbox itself. There's probably a way, and it's probably quite simple, but I much prefer using the RetroArch way of doing it. So that's adding it through Dosbox itself. Now the advantage of doing it through RetroArch is you have much more freedom of how you can control how you save your game. It's more compatible with the controllers, etc., like the standard Xbox One controller. So let's come out of this. We're going to remove it from Dosbox, from Launchbox. We're going to zip it. Using 7-zip. But any zip program will be fine. I like 7-zip, but it seems to be the standard for emulation hardware. There's the zip file. Go back to Launchbox. Instead of clicking the second one down, now we're going to use RetroArch instead. So we click the top one. It's an MS-DOS. We're going to use RetroArch. Use files in current location. and then next, next, next. Next. And now this will install through RetroArch. Now what you want to make sure is that your RetroArch is using the Dosbox Pure core. So to do this, we're going to go into RetroArch. We want to go, make it full screen. We want to go to Online Updater, Core Downloader. I'm going to scroll down to Dosbox Pure. Click it, and it will install for you. It's telling me my version's already installed. Come out of RetroArch, go into Launchbox, click on the Tools, Manage, Emulators, click RetroArch, click Edit, click Associated Platforms, go down to MS-DOS, and we want to make sure this is the core selected, which is Dosbox Pure Libato. As long as that is selected, any DOS game that's added via that method I've just shown you will launch through Dosbox Pure. We'll just click out of there and click close. We click OK, obviously, if you've made the change. I click close because the change is already there for me. So let's click the game again, click play. The game will now launch through RetroArch. As you can see, it's a different setup here, so press any key. With Dosbox Pure, you have a mode that will basically select it so that you're using the keys within Dosbox and not the keys within your Windows host platform. So this is your scroll lock button. So click that and you'll have game focus on. So let's press a button. Enter. Oh, okay, it seems to be doing. Right, so we're going to press number 1. Let's click setup. Let's go to sound configuration. Digital audio driver. Select. Attempt to configure sound driver automatically. Device detected successfully. Click OK. And that should be sorted. Click done. I'm going to start game. What I'm going to do is I'm going to exit the program just to show you. That'll take you back to this menu. Just press any key and we'll go to in your house wf inyourhouse.exe. That should load the game. Oh, as you notice, we have sound. It's accepted the controllers.
The Undertaker! Tonight, in the squared circle, The Undertaker versus the bizarre Gold Dust.
Enterprise, this is Captain Luke Rayner of the USS Alexander. We have returned from the future. In 8 days, the United Federation of Planets will be completely destroyed. A new...
Yep, my game crashed. Not handling that well. Okay. Let's try something else. So another helpful tip that I can give you guys. I was playing through a Star Trek game, Judgment Rights, which I'll go into later on in this video. To review for part of the game section, and I was having issues with Dosbox in saving the game, and was having some control issues, and this is where I kind of learned about why Dosbox Pure is actually more beneficial. So there's actually a way to change the way in which Launchbox emulates from within Launchbox. So basically, if you click the game that you want to edit, that will bring up the screen. We want to go to Dosbox, and we want to uncheck Use Dosbox to play this game. It's at the top. We want to go into Emulation, and then we want to go to Use Emulation to play this game. We want to click that box. And then we want to select RetroArch from the list. And again, as long as your associated platform is set to Dosbox Pure Liberato, then it will automatically launch the game in Dosbox Pure. It will use that core to emulate the game. And that's basically it. It will then ask you, now sometimes... What does happen here, there seems to be a bit of an error with Launchbox where, as you can see, it's asking me about Atari Jaguar, and I haven't really touched any of my Atari Jaguar games on here. So just click no to that, and it might ask you again then about MS-DOS. Do you want to do this for all your MS-DOS games? If you want to, click yes. If you don't, click no. And just be very careful with these screens that come up, what happens, because that can cause a few issues. What you can do is click no to everything and then hit Control A and basically go into Edit and change and do the same thing again. Hitting Control A obviously selects everything, and you go into Edit and basically just change, go to DOSBox, click uncheck the Use DOSBox, go to Emulation, check Emulation, and then select RetroArch from the list and click OK. And that will basically change all the games in your DOS library from the native Launchbox version of DOSBox into RetroArch is DOSBox Pure Core. Hi guys, I just want to say a quick shout out to everyone who's made this community possible by liking and sharing and watching the videos, subscribing to the channel and coming back. Some of you have come back, you know, it's amazing. I never would have thought after a couple of months of just doing this we'd be on the views that we have, and we have 160 odd subscribers. It's absolutely blown my mind. If you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. So let's take a look at installing RetroArch onto DOSBox Pure. And like I said, this isn't really the most stable version of Windows, and we will go into Windows emulation much deeper in the third in this series of videos. So basically, in order for this to work, what you need to do is you need to have a a copy of Windows 98, an ISO copy, whether you've got like a disc, an installation disc, or an OEM copy that lying around from, yesteryear, or there are abandonware sites that you can use for downloading Windows. And I don't know as to how legit these sites are, so I'm not going to show where they are, but a Google search will basically help you in this regard. So you basically need to what we're going to do is we're going to go into RetroArch, and we want to go to, this time, load content, and select the drive where your content is. For me, I've got an external drive. I've kept the ISO in with my Windows games that I keep with my Windows emulation. And you basically select what core you want to use, and it's Dosbox Pure. So then you get this screen. And what we want to do is we want to go boot and install Windows. So first of all, you want to select your drive size. Now, up to 2 gigabytes is what is supported conventionally. There is obviously support for higher drive sizes. But basically what happens with RetroArch is it does the same thing as DOS does, is it creates its own sort of little drive to install the game on if you're using a game. Now, I had issues getting games to run through doing this through Windows. I actually used another method, but some people have had good luck with this, other people haven't. So I'm just going to show you the method, and I would say you probably need quite a high-end PC for this to work. My PC is probably middle of the road, and this is why there's different methods that work for me, because it basically uses your hardware. So it's using your hardware in order to emulate a second version of Windows. So we go for a 2 gigabyte drive, and we want to boot from CD-ROM. Now with DOSBox Pure, basically if you press the scroll lock, it will basically change the keyboard settings so you can actually interact with DOSBox itself, and you're not actually interacting with Windows host machine then, if that makes sense. As you can just see, there was a crash there. If it does crash, just go through the same process again and then click boot from hard disk, because obviously you have like a hard disk thing there. Then you get this screen. Click enter, it'll go through scan disk. Then basically what you do is you just go through the on-screen prompts, and it sets up a version of Windows like it would if you were installing it onto a PC. So it'll ask you to go through all the different things, set your settings up. I'm basically breezing through this. Then just enter your name, enter your company, and obviously enter the product key. Once you've entered the product key, it'll continue setting up Windows. Set your time zone. And there you go. And there you have it. So you can install Voodoo drivers, etc. I'll go through that in the Windows emulation video when I do it, because I found this difficult. So obviously, as you can see here, I'm trying to install a game. I've got a ripped copy of my Star Trek Elite Force, and it kind of goes through the installation process. What I don't like is how it's displayed quite small on the screen, but there's probably ways through Dosbox Pure, through the settings, you can actually change this and change the resolution. So I'd got through the install process, although as you can tell it's quite shaky. Install DirectX. And again, I had a lot of issues with crashing. Oh, here we go. The old illegal operation. So I could install the game, but I couldn't launch it. It kept giving me the illegal operation. But we'll go into that when I go into the Windows emulation next time, when I do the next video for that. And I'll post a link when that video is done. I'll post a link to that in the comments section below. But that's basically RetroArch running Windows. Now, obviously, the thing you've got to realize is, obviously, it depends on your PC. And though, you know, this tutorial, it didn't work for me now, it might work for you. It might work. You might have different games that might work. Or, you know, this software is continuously being updated. So give it a couple more weeks or months or a year from now, and this might just work like a charm. Do you know what I mean? It's constantly being updated. So that's basically, I wanted to just show you that it is possible to run Windows 98. I've got Windows ME working. I've got as far as Windows ME working. XP is still considered licensed, so it's not actually abandonware at the moment, so I didn't do XP. But I've done as far as ME because that is now considered as abandonware, and I had the discs for both 98.
My God.
So this has proven to be a bit of a longer video than I anticipated. So we're going to spend the last 5 minutes looking at some DOS games. This is Star Trek Judgment, right? It's a point and click adventure game. It's games like these where home computers such as the Amiga, the Atari ST and DOS in the early days, and obviously early Windows, really shone. And it basically is a follow-up to the version of 25th anniversary that came out on DOS, and I think it came out on the Amiga as well. I will do a more in-depth look at Star Trek DOS games and PC games in the future, and thank you to everyone who watched my recent Star Trek video, by the way. It's a fantastic game because it really feels like you're playing through an original series Star Trek episode. The voice acting is on point. I don't think it's the original actors, but if it is, well, the voice acting is actually quite on point. And it has the atmosphere of a Star Trek episode. I love the art style, and I love the way that the ship systems are integrated into the actual interface. As you can see, on the side of the bridge you've got the shield display and the weapons display. And basically, you literally just follow this through like a point and click adventure, and You go to different star systems, there's space combat, there's bridge management. It's everything you could want from a Star Trek game. It is fantastic, and if you're a fan of the point-and-click genre, adventure games, or science fiction or Star Trek in general, I genuinely think you should check this out. So, as we featured this earlier as well, let's have a quick review. WWE in Your House. Now, this is a port from the arcade game, and I think it came out on a couple of consoles, but mainly it was DOS and PlayStation this came out. This is a PlayStation or an early PlayStation era type game, and it's basically an arcade beat-em-up set in the World Wrestling Federation universe, or the WWE universe. It is no WrestleFest, unfortunately, but it is, if you accept it for what it is, as a fun beat-em-up, basically using the eccentric characters from the mid-90s WWE, which is probably the worst period in WWE's history, to be perfectly honest with you, but it still has some amazing characters. But if you take those characters and you sort of put them into this sort of weird setting, the game kind of works as an arcade beat-em-up. It's not a wrestling game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a fighting game that is a lot of fun. Again, it works better on console, I think, because you obviously have more ability to play two-player and multiplayer, etc. But you stick an Xbox One controller in, and it picks it up straight away on RetroArch, and fantastic. Nice little bit of arcade beat-em-up fun. Talking about games where DOS really shines through, this is a very, very early DOS game, as you can see by the graphics. This is a text-based DOS game, but I had a lot of fun with this, and I might use this on an upcoming live stream. This is Yes, Prime Minister, and it's based on the BBC sitcom of the same name, or at least draws inspiration from it. I think it uses the same characters, but I'm not entirely certain, to be perfectly honest with you. But what a lot of fun, because the gameplay is basically your 24-hour cycles. You have meetings with different sort of cabinet members, with your home secretary, with your party leader, etc. And it's just almost impossible not to get into some sort of embroiled corruption in this. Within like 2 days of playing in game time, I'd already found myself in the middle of a scandal to do with the police and a drunken trade secretary, and found myself involved with Russian oligarchs doing my party political broadcasts. It is a lot of fun, as long as you sort of can look past the graphics and just enjoy the game for what it is and what it was meant to be. This is, again, this is one of those games, like simulation games, like point-and-click games. This is one of those type of games where DOS and Amiga and those sort of platforms really do shine, and some of this has been lost on PC games today, sadly. Some of this sort of old RTS and abilities to like be really free within games has been lost a little bit today, and I'd like to see it come back. I'd like to see it make a resurgence. This is the DOS conversion of Street Fighter 2, and it is absolutely awful. It controls pretty terribly. I noticed the controls can be adjusted through RetroArch, but it runs awful. Now, I know DOS games can have issue with game speed, and this looks absolutely beautiful, but the way it runs is just awful. And if this was the version of Street Fighter 2 that you had on DOS, then I feel for you, as it's a very, very awful adaptation of the game. It's very sluggish, the moves are very hard to pull off, and it's just not responsive. Now, I don't know how many of you remember the Angry Video Game Nerd and his original episode about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles NES game. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles NES game was a very difficult game, What a lot of people don't know is it had many ports. And the DOS port is absolutely awful. Here it is. I'm going to be doing a video on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ports at some point. And though the level design is near enough identical, the turtle design and the enemy design is a little bit better than the NES. It's a bit more colourful, and the turtles themselves are bigger. But as you can see, it's basically the NES game, but it's much harder and much more difficult to control. I will be following this up in another video, and I want to talk about these ports in more depth. And finally we have Dark Forces. Now this is the first game in the Jedi Knight trilogy, where you follow, I believe the character is called Kyle Katarn, and it's set sort of during the original Star Wars trilogy. This is the old continuity, obviously before Disney took over. But this is basically Doom with a Star Wars skin, and it is absolutely sublime. I would say graphically it's one of the most impressive third-person shooters of its time. You definitely feel like you are in a Star Wars setting here. Although you can see the sort of Doom inspiration and the fact it's basically a Doom map that's kind of been given that sort of Star Wars sort of skin, if that makes sense. But it is absolutely fun to play. I've completed this. I really enjoyed it on the PlayStation. This version is vastly superior to the PlayStation version, and I love the different weapons. I love the different styles. Probably the only thing I don't like about it is the inverse lock, which, as you can see, I'm having a slight issue with. But once you kind of played it for a while, you do get used to that. As first-person shooters go, on DOS games, this is probably one of the best, in my personal opinion. Okay, so that about wraps it up today, guys. Thank you very, very much for joining me. This has been a very long video, but I hope you have found some benefit from it, and it will help you with everything you need to know about using and emulating DOS. So the next emulation video I'm going to be doing as part of this series is the third part, which is Windows emulation, and we're going to be talking about that in much more detail. That's probably going to be about a week or two away, or that's probably going to be a little while off yet, because I need to sort of polish up on a few things to make sure it all kind of works, and you know, I get it right myself. But there's going to be videos in the meantime, so thank you very, very much, guys, for tuning into this video. I hope you found it of benefit. If you do, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you very soon. It's a Sega Master System games based on Disney cartoon video coming up very, very shortly, and lots more to enjoy. Thank you very much, guys. I'll see you soon. Take care.